There's a lot of videos out there installing bumpers and winches on the new Jeep JLs and the Gladiators, but today I thought I'd bring you something different. Let's just see how much weight difference we're dealing with these aftermarket bumpers and adding a winch, and seeing what it does as far as squatting the suspension of the front end of our Jeeps. So before we get started, we want to take some measurements of our ride height before we make any changes whatsoever. So, we'll put the tape measure right on the seam of this front fender. And what I've got is 36 and 7/16. We want to take a measurement of the other side as well, because they don't tend to sit perfectly level. And this side is 36 and 5/16. So there is a little bit of a difference. Mainly because the fuel tank on these Gladiators sits on the passenger side. And so you're gonna have, based on how much fuel you're carrying, a little bit of offset. But there's also no driver, so I think they're trying to compensate for that. Little known fact, unless you watch my videos, the factory springs in the rear are actually different to compensate for that weight carrying, whereas most of your aftermarket, or all of the aftermarket rear springs that you get, are going to be the same spring that'll work on either side. I do want to point out, just for clarity, our Gladiator has 2.5-inch front lift springs and king shocks, so not stock height, also running on 35-inch Nitto tires. So since most aftermarket bumpers are going to require you to remove the factory skid plate if equipped, which ours is Rubicon, so it is equipped, I went ahead and took off the skid plate and the mounting brackets along with the hardware so we can get like a total weight measurement of everything that we took off. So 56.2 pounds. That's what all the factory stuff weighs, including the skid plate for the Rubicon and hardware. Now, I do also want to point out we will be transferring over the fog lights into the new bumper, but I think the main point of this test is to see how much squat this creates, so we'll make sure and throw those in with the new bumper when we weigh it to try to be accurate. But what we all want to know is, what's it do to the front end? Fours bumper. Now, here's your part number, which is going to fit an 18 and newer JL and 20 and 21 Gladiator. Would also like to point out, these are made in the USA, just like me. Looks great. I don't see any damage to the finish. It does have a really pretty kind of a semi-gloss, or I don't know, maybe that's actually flat black finish with a little bit of texture to it. So it's pretty cool. So I will give you this little pro tip on removing the wiring harness for the fog lights. Now, they're just held in by these 4 screws, and you just pull them out. They'll set right in place here. And Fab Fours sends you new screws, washers, and nylock nuts to install these. But you really are going to have to take this entire outside housing off just to feed this wiring harness out and reuse it. But what I say is, grab yourself a punch, find a place find all the places where there's these little Christmas tree keepers that hold that wiring harness in place, and just punch those out, and then you can just pull the wiring harness out without disassembling this entire front bumper. 100.2 pounds. Now that is with the wiring harness and the fog lights and the hardware all tucked inside, as well as the winch mount bracket. So bumper alone is essentially double the weight of the factory front bumper. So you're gaining 50 pounds when you switch to this. Alright, so let's take a bumper only measurement for some of you who wouldn't be installing the winch. We are now at 36 3/8 on the driver's side. And 36 3/16 on the passenger side. So we definitely squatted below where we were with the factory bumper, but not terrible. Now I do understand that it may compress easier when you do hit bumps, but as far as standard ride height, you haven't lost that much. Half inch. So our winch made it, and it's not light. Although this is probably the lightest one they make. It's the VR EVO series 10S, which basically means it's a 10,000 pound winch with synthetic rope. The VR series, unlike the rest of the Warn winches, is not made in the USA. She's a beaut, Clark. $59.2. Now when it comes to battery connections, Jeeps are kind of nice because they're already ready for accessories, like we've put all of our other auxiliary lights on this stud. So the main thing to remember is that you're not fastening any cables to the nuts that are actually keeping tension for the battery post to one of these harnesses. So make sure you're not using one of these two when you're fastening any of your accessories to the battery. So let's give her a test. The remote plugs in right over here. This is a nice heavy rubberized plug, or rubber plug, that protects our contact where our remote lead plugs in. It goes up here, then the remote, on the bottom. Line up the marks like so. Now it instantly is lit where it shows the wired side, so it's ready to be used. So it goes out and in. Now if we unplug it, we can use the wireless version, which we just need to hold the mode button for a couple of seconds, and it lights up saying we're in wireless mode. And now we have out and in. There you have it. Now we can just press and hold this to turn it back off. And it's that simple. Now for our last measurement. 36 1/16. $35 7/8. So basically it's 15/16 or almost 1 inch on the driver's side, and just, let's see, 5, 6, 7, 7/16 on the passenger side. So I'm assuming it was already compressed to the point where the shocks weren't going to give much more freely. That's why the passenger side didn't squat any more than it did. But anyway, expect close to 1 inch on the front end of your truck to be lowered if you add, what do we add? I'll do the math and have it on screen. Anyway, that's it and that's all. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you later, y'all.